if you think positively, if you think about good things, then you're also going to see more good things.
If we can't down-regulate that stress over time, neuroinflammation rises, except they found IL-10 lowers that inflammation.
Which is why this information won the Nobel Prize for 2025 in medicine. We can do so much if we know how to reduce inflammation in the body. We know that one of the biggest issues in our world today, like affecting our health, is chronic stress. Welcome to the Science of Sound. I'm your host, Aaron Fournier. On today's episode, I have Christian Fowler in the studio with me. Yep. Christian, thanks for being here.
Absolutely, good to be back.
Today, we are going to talk about the Nobel Prize in Medicine for 2025 and its importance. And really, the exciting thing about this Nobel Prize is that oddly, it ties together everything that we've been talking about on this podcast really nicely, kind of wraps it up and does a bow. And so absolutely. I'm excited to dive into this. We have some more studies that we're going to talk about as well as we go through. But for those of us who don't know, let's start with the 2025 Nobel Prize in Medicine. Kind of what is it? What's it about? And let's jump in there.
Yeah, so this Nobel Prize is in physiology and medicine in the year 2025. And it's the discovery of regulatory T cells, which are also just called Treg cells. They shorten that a lot. So the discovery was made in the early 2000s, and mouse models were lacking in FOXP3, which is a gene that's known to suppress autoimmune, so suppress the body attacking itself, basically. So you get an overabundance of white blood cells attacking your system when you have a sickness present. And so the common medicinal practice is to just blunt the immune system. Because if we can just turn off the immune system a bit, we turn off the autoimmune response. So what they found is that they isolated a subset of CD4 plus T cells, and these suppressed immune overactivation. So they were kind of labeled the peacekeepers of the immune system. So genetic sequencing identified FOXP3 as the transcription factor that programs those cells. And what did they find?
Yeah, so they in this, they found that this FOXP3 gene actually regulates these peacekeeping cells, the Tregs, and that's the really exciting thing about this. And I want to stop before we dive any deeper, because this ties together, I think 2 episodes ago when we had Dr. Harris on the podcast and we were talking about the immune system.
And he barely mentioned this.
He mentioned T cells, right? Tregs, and the immune system. And that whole conversation was about the immune system. But whenever I was reading the Nobel Prize for 25, it's like, hey, we just talked about this.
It shows that Dr.
It was
Harris
really exciting. Yeah, so it shows he probably knew that. We just didn't dive necessarily into this specific piece of it in the FOXP3 gene. But yeah, the really exciting thing about the Nobel Prize in 2025 was this discovery that the FOXP3 gene regulates our T cells and the importance of our T cells, and how our T cells are such an important part of our immune system because it helps prevent ourselves from fighting against ourselves. So
attacking native tissue, native responses. Yeah, absolutely.
So Tregs prevent self-attack by releasing IL-10. The important part about IL-10 is that's something that can cross the blood-brain barrier. So it helps prevent inflammation, neuroinflammation, things like that. It's basically immune tolerance. So the loss of the FOXP3 gene leads to autoimmunity. So
IPEX syndrome.
Yep.
Interesting. And the blood-brain barrier, when you lower neural inflammation, that's both a stress causer and caused by stress.
Correct.
So chronic stress leads to this inflammation in our neural system that hits our amygdala, our hippocampus. And it's like you need to be in overdrive. As Dr. Harris would say, the Saber-Toothed tiger's here, and you're in fight mode. And so if we can't down-regulate that stress over time and, self-perpetuate down-regulated stress, neuroinflammation rises. And at that point, you're kind of on a downward slope, historically, except they found IL-10 lowers that inflammation. And so to actually get IL-10 in your system, you have to start releasing oxytocin, I think. Your vagus nerve has to start acting.
Right.
And so,
you have to switch from fight or flight into rest and digest. And so this is how it all kind of relates to everything that we've been talking about so far this year, which is our immune system cannot operate properly unless your nervous system is operating properly.
Yeah,
and your nervous system can't operate properly whenever it is in a state of chronic stress. And
because your energy is probably likely going to running. It's going
right.
toward preservation.
And we know that one of the biggest issues in our world today, like affecting our health, is chronic stress, is stress in general. And so there's a WebMD published that up to 90% of all doctor's office visits are for stress-related illnesses. And then we also know that the 6 leading causes of death in the United States are for stress-related ailments.
So everyone has this, and there isn't the physical danger.
Right.
That's crazy.
Right. Like there isn't a saber-toothed tiger chasing us, but we're all living like there is one, right? And so part of this conversation that's important is identifying what is your saber-toothed tiger, right? And so sometimes...
Name of the podcast.
So sometimes it's something that's easy to see. Sometimes we know what it is.
Finances, work stress.
Right. It could be any easy to see thing. Sometimes it's the hidden things. And this is, again, where it ties into some of our other podcasts that we've done with Dr. Harris. Sometimes it's something like the limbic trauma loop, right?
Yeah, trauma.
Sometimes it's something that an experience that you had that you don't even really think about anymore, but it has had such an impact on your body that it has put you in a state where even small things turn into big blow-ups. Right?
Triggers it,
Right? And that is your body being in a state of chronic stress as well. And so sometimes it's things that you see, sometimes it's things that you don't even realize are happening. But one of the important things in this to not only help your immune system and to help with chronic stress and all of the implications with that, like heart disease and everything else that go, like the 6 leading causes of death,
absolutely.
Right? And up to 90% of all doctor's office visits for stress. So if we can prevent chronic stress, we can heal in so many different ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it all correlates. It all relates back to our T cells, our immune system, and our nervous system. I think it's a really important opportunity to take a moment to self-reflect as well.
What are my stressors?
Yeah, take a moment, if you're hearing this right now.
Yeah, pause it.
Right? Like, and really just think for a minute.
Yeah.
What are the stressors that are impacting me? And how do I react to those stressors?
And maybe choose to respond to those stressors.
Right.
Take more ownership, get in the driver's seat and decide this thing is happening, the stressor that has been here for years. It could be, familial, it could be finance, it could be whatever. This has been here for years. I'm going to change the way I respond. And we were talking before air, and I'm sorry to segue this a bit, but we were talking about the mindful intentions that we have.
Correct.
And the reason we develop those is because you take a moment a day to read this from Soak, and it says, I am excellent in everything I do. It'll say a variety of things. Each day is different, and you repeat that over yourself. You're taking your executive function. You're taking your ability to be the driver, and you're deciding stress factors are there, but I can overcome them. So I think putting yourself in the response seat instead of reaction seat is a big part of your body going, okay, we can do this. And then that raises oxytocin.
So you're giving people the answer, right? Which is like, how do I fix this?
Yeah.
And so mindful intentions are one of those things, right? Starting off your day with a sense of positivity and ending your day with a sense of positivity, a mindset and attitude that I'm grateful no matter what's going on around me, that I'm happy, that I'm full of joy no matter what's going on around me.
Laura talks a lot about that. Henry's co-host and wife. Yeah. She talks about how gratitude is one of the highest frequency, funny enough, things you can do.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely.
But I think even before someone gets super important, right? Is to how do I fix it?
Sure.
Before that though, it's the recognition, I think is also it's the most important thing, because until you recognize these are my chronic stressors, you can't do anything about it. You can't fix chronic stress unless you can name it. Yeah. And so you have to be able to identify it. Then you can work on the actions of fixing it.
Wow. And I think that's a positive snowball effect. Maybe there's more than one.
Right. Well, because it fixes this vicious cycle, which is you're chronically stressed. So you're always in fight or flight mode, which means that your FOXP3 gene is downregulating, which means that your body's immune system's peacekeeper cells, the T cells, the T-Regs,
can't proliferate,
aren't being produced, right? And so your immune system cannot function properly, which causes your body's immune system to start attacking itself.
Thinking everything's the enemy.
And this is when you get filled with chronic inflammation. This is where a lot of disease happens. And so I want us to, in a little bit, get into, a number of different ways that once we've identified kind of what our chronic stressors are, once we've identified, this feels right, this sounds familiar, this could be me, right?
Yeah.
Then what do we do about that? But let's dive some more into some science behind this, some studies that really support this year's Nobel Prize in medicine.
For sure. So the second one is Saber-Toothed, and I hope I'm saying that right. This is out of Toronto, but essentially it's a brain behavior and immunity study from 2024, and it talks about Treg transfer, reducing anxiety. So let's go over how it was done. Mice were exposed to mild chronic stress for 3 weeks. So 3 weeks of being restrained from things, not getting food as regularly. Half received injections of lab-expanded T cells. So just a quick cursory knowledge on that. They take the T cells they can find in the mice, and they extract them via blood draw, and they expand those in a controlled environment. And then they take the expanded number, which could be 100% uptick in that, and they put it back in the blood cells just to see what that does to chronic stress and anxiety.
So they have a control. Just the regular mice, and then the other is the mice with a lot more an upregulate of T cells.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And so the behavioral test measured anxiety, brain tissue was also examined for inflammation. So what we talked about, the IL-10 crossing. Right. And so their findings, the T-regulated treated mice, as opposed to the control group, showed a 30 to 40% fewer anxiety, like less anxiety than the other group. Their behaviors, their lower microglial, which I just learned that word today, inflammation specifically in the amygdala was lowered. So those cytokines, the IL-6, it dropped sharply. It dropped significantly once they put those upregulated T cells back into the mice.
Yeah. I mean, that's an amazing finding that just having, a larger amount of T cells in the body,
just that
leads to a 30 to 40% reduction in anxiety.
And it's wild that anxiety feels emotional, and you don't correlate your body's function with your emotions a lot.
Yeah.
Your anxiety, your stress. It's, I feel like more and more we're talking about what stress, the emotional side, does to your physiology.
Yeah.
And this shows that we can affect the physiology, and it directly affects how those, at least the mice, are perceiving things.
Yeah. The emotion and immunity are really part of the same conversation.
Yeah. Which is wild. And again, what we've been talking about, soak at large, and in these science episodes, it's like, everything is connected, and it's one conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So this next study is also from 2024, looking at chronic stress suppressing Tregs. So we mentioned this briefly already, kind of in our overview, but here it is. Here's one of the studies that supports it and that really found this. So rodents, again, my study, they were restrained daily for 21 days to mimic chronic stress. They took samples of blood and other things. They looked at Treg percentages. And what they found is that, these are mice that were full of inflammation. These are mice that were chronically stressed, right?
Wow.
Which is what they wanted. But whenever they were chronically stressed, you have this, increase in inflammation, as well as FOXP3, that gene that's so important to create T cells, is not being expressed as much. There's a downregulation of the FOXP3 gene, as well as a reduction in Treg cells by 35%.
So we have these gene things that help us fight stress.
Right.
And our chronic stress, not dealt with, lowers gene expression.
That's the issue, right? So something that's helping us deal with chronic stress is hurt by chronic stress. So the more chronic stress we have, the less we can actually protect ourselves against it.
So negative limbic trauma.
That's that vicious cycle, right?
It's a molecular civil war on itself.
But this really just it shows how important this information is.
Yeah,
and
you have to know the problem.
Why we're having this conversation right now.
Absolutely.
Because we all recognize that we deal with different stressors in our life, but unless we understand how that's really negatively impacting our body, then, maybe this is the thing that finally gets you to wake up to say, I need to deal with this. I need to actually handle this
Not
situation.
Just white knuckle stress, like, everybody's stressed and I'm stressed.
Right.
I'm going to wake up, I'm going to do the same thing. And Einstein said you can't solve a problem on the same level it was created, on the same plane. And so people getting up and they're chronically stressed and they're like, I'm going to go to work. I'm going to try to make the money, bring home the bacon. I'm going to do all these things. Hopefully my relationships get better, etc. They're not taking a different vantage. And I think that's kind of what this is about, is if you don't take a different vantage and change the way you respond, that gets worse and worse. Because at the level that genes stop expressing, like stress fighting genes stop expressing, that's pretty base. Like you're not going to go below that.
So, yeah, what's after that?
Yeah, what's after that?
Yeah.
Bedrock.
Right. Well, yeah. And then the problem is that like then that leads to this autoimmune problem, which then leads to
More
cancer and
problems.
more types of disease, which then leads to more chronic stress, right? Because now you're stressed about your health, not just everything else that was already stressing you out. It really snowballs.
It really snowballs. So people listening to this, hopefully you did take a minute to reflect on the stressors and what might be your thing, because they're going to be the topical ones that we all know. And then there may be what Aaron and Dr. Harris talked about recently, the negative limbic trauma loop. There could be something deeper, childhood level, that it doesn't occur again, but you're triggered because what isn't repaired is repeated. So what we're finding here is that in the mice in the last study, they had high stress. They were given T regulatory cells, which the body can produce.
Right.
And their anxiety, their behavior improved, their anxiety lowered, their emotional state essentially improved. So that's not only preventative in T-Reg cell production, it's curative. So there's something that we can do. We don't want this to be a doom and gloom, and we're about to get more into what we can do to improve that. But this can be helped right now in your current state too.
Yeah. Well, so here, there's a study from 2018, CALFA, 528 hertz music and endocrine function, right? So we're looking at 528 hertz and how it's impacting our body's immune system and our body's ability to produce hormones and our body's ability to deal with stress.
Absolutely.
So what they did with this is they listened to 528 hertz tuned music, and they measured cortisol, oxytocin, heart rate variability, and mood.
Yeah, it looks like questionnaires were recorded before and after listening.
Yeah.
What did they
So
find there?
in this specific study, they found that 528 hertz lowered cortisol by 20%. It raised oxytocin by 9%. It increased heart rate variability, which is a good thing. That's what we want.
Absolutely.
And participants reported more relaxation, more emotional connection, which again, like
you're
going to be more relaxed. You're going to feel more connected when your oxytocin is going up. And
it's the bonding
when you're
hormone.
right, exactly. Yeah, it's a love hormone. And when your oxytocin is going up, it's probably because your cortisol is going down, right? And so you can't
it's causality thing.
You can't have both at the same time. And so this is one of those studies that shows how sound is one of those ways that we can help fight against chronic stress.
Absolutely, yeah. And I find it interesting in a previous episode, which I keep referencing. Maybe, if you haven't seen it, I recommend going and seeing it, the limbic trauma loop. So Dr. Harris talks about how to improve vagus nerve function.
Right.
And he said that one of the ways you can do that is by humming. Yeah. And we know that's probably less than 100 hertz in humans. It's maybe around 90 hertz, depending on if actually you're male or female, most likely. But when you hum or when you listen to these 528 hertz tuned music, it's having a physiological response. And you and I touched on what music and sound does to cells.
Right.
They actually listen.
Yep.
And so the really cool thing to me here is it produced an emotional connection response. And I just increasingly find it interesting that the emotional tie that these things have. So you listen to this music and you decide you're in the driver's seat of your life. And like Aaron said, oxytocin and cortisol are not both going to rise. That's not a causality. One's going to rise as the other dips. And so when you have oxytocin rising, your vagus nerve, your IL-10 go up, your FOXP3,
right,
everything goes up.
And so, you're boosting your immune system by listening to something that is reducing your stress levels.
So this next study, in addition to music, 528 hertz and 440 hertz, there being a difference there, and raising our Treg cells with sound and with frequency, I want to talk a little bit about what actually raising those Treg cells does in humans, not mice, where we actually had people with type 1 diabetes, we had people with lupus, and they actually, in a controlled environment, again, like I talked about earlier, they extracted the Treg cells that they could find. So FOXP3 wasn't fully suppressed there. They had some Treg cells. They were able to isolate these and actually expand these. and it says ex vivo with IL-2. So we have IL-6, IL-10, IL-2. So essentially they gave these Treg cells fuel to proliferate, to expand. And they reinfused these Treg cells back into these patients, again, with type 1 diabetes or lupus. Yeah. And they followed up on their biomarkers, their inflammatory cytokines, their clinical symptoms. And this is, I really like this study because it's not just mice. It's one thing to study mice, but, a lot of studies you get into ethical stuff, whether you can do it with humans or not. This had enough of a finding that they were able to do it with humans. And they found after invigorating the patient, so to speak, with these Treg cells, that their inflammation markers dropped by about 40% or greater.
Yeah, by more than 40%.
So
that's huge.
No, there isn't, I feel like, a medication on the planet that does that without inhibiting other functions in the body.
Right. That comes with some other types of side effects.
Big side effects.
And so, again, just this is foot stomping the importance of our Treg cells, of the FOXP3 gene, which is why this information won the Nobel Prize for 2025 in medicine, is because we can do so much if we know how to reduce inflammation in the body.
Yeah, reduce stress, reduce cortisol and inflammation.
Right. Then that leads to so much healthier outcomes.
Absolutely.
So, super cool.
I think that for those of us who don't have access to getting our blood drawn, having our Treg cells proliferated, something I'd love to say anecdotally and talk about is that we can use, frequencies that we know are beneficial to the body, clinically curated frequencies that were tested by doctors. We can use these. We can use humming. We can use positive affirmation to proliferate those cells in ourselves. Because when the vagus nerve is slowed down, when IL-10 is not crossing the blood-brain barrier, when the FOXP3 genes are downregulated, we're not going to produce Treg. So if you don't have access, which I don't have access to doing this clinically, we can actually take in these practices like we were talking about earlier and upregulate these. And if you do that, I'd say not, habitually, like get really crazy on it, but if you do that daily and you learn to have a self-meditation practice and a positive practice in yourself, I don't know how far off a 40% decrease in inflammatory cytokines is, but we're going to get closer and closer, which
right. Well, and who's to say that you wouldn't be able to upregulate your FOXP3 gene enough and your T cell count enough to still get this greater than 40% reduction in inflammation.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's you mentioned not being able to be a part of this study to have these exact tests done, right? But we don't need to be in this study to see the results of it, and we don't need to be in this study to also do that ourselves and get those pieces of the benefits, right? 100%. And so that's, again, it keeps bringing me back to, if you stop, take a second, what are your chronic stressors? Identify them, name them, and then implement some type of practices, right? Yeah, whether absolutely. It's humming, whether it's words of affirmation, whether it's sound therapy, whether it's meditation. Yeah. There are a number of things you can implement to help yourself to break that cycle of chronic stress. Sometimes it can take months to break you out of chronic stress. It depends on the person, depends on how long you've been in that state as well, right? And so...
But every day you weaken the defense of those chronic stressors.
Every time you meditate, every time you speak words of affirmation, every time you listen to calming music that is going to reduce your cortisol and increase your oxytocin, you are breaking that cycle. You are helping your body flip that switch again and get out of fight or flight and into rest and digest, which is in turn helping your body's immune system to upregulate the FOXP3 gene, which is going to create more T cells, which is going to help your body to fight actual disease,
viruses or
viruses and bacteria, things that it should be fighting and not be fighting itself.
It's like deleting the software that kills you, that hurts you,
right?
And replacing it with something that just, imagine literally your white blood cells in a fight, and it's like, we're going, like the peacekeeper Treg cells come in and it's like, we're not attacking this, we're attacking this. And what that does,
it's just helping redirect the body to focus on the actual things that it needs to be protecting against.
Which I imagine also, this isn't said here, but results in a lot of energy. Yeah. Like if your body's not attacking itself, you're not, hurting your own function, but you're also now targeting a much smaller population within the body than the body itself.
Well, and that's a perfect opportunity to move into, how do I know if I'm chronically stressed, right? And it might be that you're not sleeping well. It might be that you have brain fog. You might have headaches.
Yeah.
There are a
lot of fatigue,
Yeah.
food cravings that are out of circadian rhythm times. Like if you're craving a lot of glucose, sugar, and carbs at night after the sun is set, that's a sign your body's pretty stressed too. So a lot of things. You have trouble moving, body stiff in the morning, you have inflammation, and that's not out of nowhere. They're chronic stressors. So Aaron didn't say this specifically, but naming your stressors it's almost like turning around to the saber-toothed tiger and like stopping it.
Right.
A saber-toothed tiger will still try to eat you, but body stressors today, environmental stressors today, we can look at and reframe, and that's going to do a lot.
Yeah, the reframing I think is a huge thing as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that identification and then reframing what it is, and that's one of the great things about the positive affirmations, our daily mindful intentions, is that it's helping you to live in a world. Right, your thoughts create your reality.
Yes.
Right, what you think about, you bring about. Something that we love to say here at Soak. And if you think positively, if you think about good things, then you're also going to see more good things.
Yeah,
right?
that not parasympathetic. What is that called? Reticular activation system.
Yes.
It's I'm seeing red cars everywhere, and then you start seeing more and more. So
what you focus on, you can't help but find more of, right?
Exactly.
So if you, instead of focusing on stressors, instead choose to focus on things that make you happy. If you choose to focus on the good in your life and what's going on around you that's positive, you're only going to see more of that positive.
How can this get any better?
Right.
You hear people say, how can this get any worse? And it's like, I actually heard my sister reframe that years ago, and her life started getting better. She's like, how can this day get any better? Like almost as a joke, but she didn't stop saying it.
Right. Yeah.
And so she trained her brain, like, we're going to know how to interpret events.
Even if all that does is bring a smile to your face, that's the other fun thing too, right? Is about
Do you remember
the
that
importance
study?
of smiling.
Yeah.
Right?
The pencil.
Just by smiling, you're creating more oxytocin. You're creating more positive hormones in your body. You're getting a dopamine rush from
I feel
smiling,
happy in this conversation right now.
Yeah, just by talking about smiling.
Dude, that's crazy. Don't talk about laughter. We're gonna go off and not
I know.
get back. All right, so tell us about this next study, Taylor, the Psychology Review in 2000.
So this one is out of UCLA, and they were looking at human and animal studies on gender-specific stress responses. They were measuring cortisol, oxytocin, and our ability to cope with acute stress.
Goodness.
What'd they find?
So this is really interesting. Females often responded to acute stress by increasing oxytocin, which is a wild thing. We know that females, there are 5 emotion, basically, categories in psychology, and one of them is called just trait negativity. And it's not like you're just a cynical person, but women are actually across the board higher in negativity because it helps with their threat detection response with, pregnancy or bearing children. So acute stressors.
Yeah.
And so the fact that the acute stress response across females in this study is not to just, doom and gloom, glass half empty, but they actually increase oxytocin, which bonds the people around them, bonds them more, makes them more connection oriented, essentially.
Yeah, which again, kind of as the study goes on to say, is countering cortisol's effects, which, you can't have higher oxytocin and higher cortisol.
Yep.
You're going to have higher oxytocin and then lower cortisol, which means you're going to be in less stress. You're also going to, not only want to be and promote more connection because of your higher oxytocin, you're also going to reduce cortisol's kind of like isolationist effects, right?
So reduce your own inflammation as a response to stress. So I actually was thinking about this before the podcast started. There are a lot of studies out, and I'm not able to reference them, but there are a litany of studies out on how short-term stresses. So you have a deadline at work that you are capable of hitting and doing well, that raises oxytocin long-term because of your body's competence, your mind's track record with itself.
Right.
And this
because
is
of the win that you get.
Exactly.
The boost that you get whenever you accomplish that goal.
Yes. Chronic stress versus acute stress.
This is the important thing, right? Stress is a good thing. We're not saying that stress is bad.
Don't grow without
stress is actually a great thing. Chronic stress is a bad thing, right?
Yeah,
so we need to differentiate
the stress you've learned to live with versus the one-time, more, less often stressors, the less frequent stressors. So I've never seen anything like this, but you think of, like, I don't know if your mother ever did that, but something would happen and she'd be like, let's band together. My mother would be like, let's band together and pray. We're going to talk about this and pray. And so seeing this study,
and from a more masculine standpoint, you're like, why is that your first thought? Like, why is your
Right.
first thought to come together? But this study is actually showing that that is often a response.
Yeah, that's wild. Makes me wonder if males, short-term rising cortisol to greet danger. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because short-range cortisol doesn't cause inflammation. It causes adrenal response and it causes sharpening of mental focus.
Right.
It's what gets you up in the morning to actually greet the day and get out of your fogginess of sleep. And so I wonder, it doesn't say it here, but if males actually like spike in adrenal cortisol production to fight the saber-toothed tiger.
Right. At every little stressor.
Yeah. Acute
that it presents
stressors
itself.
though. Yeah. Not chronic, which is wild.
It also, that's fascinating.
That is
Okay. What's the next one?
That was in here. So this is out of Hong Kong in 2011, and it's acute stress boost dopamine and learning. So this is directly off the back of what we were just talking about. But rodents experienced short, mild stress. Essentially, this is how it was done before learning tasks. So they had something to learn: how to climb a ladder, how to press a button. Those are common tasks that are given to rodents, or how to move through a maze. And they were experiencing short, mild stress induced by the technicians before. So prefrontal dopamine release and receptor activity was measured with microdialysis. And I don't know exactly how that works. But the findings were brief stress elevated dopamine, which is
what you just said, though. Essentially,
I never
right?
had conceptualized that before. But small acute stress raises dopamine, and that in the brain neurochemically improves memory and focus.
Yeah.
So we don't have in this if this was male or female.
Bursts increase your productivity, increase your performance.
So that's wild. This is what gets me. Chronic stress desensitized dopamine receptors. So the period of time change between acute and chronic does the exact opposite. It's a pendulum swing.
Yeah.
Which is wild. So I think the short-term stress, the only way a short-term stress doesn't become chronic, and acute stress doesn't become chronic, is if it's greeted with competence and a confidence.
Yeah.
So when you do these mindful intentions, the reason we're harping on this is because we're finding it has physiological results. When you actually say, I am excellent, I am capable today, all my dreams are coming true, I'm generating wealth. You are creating a system in you that says, I am confident, I am competent, I am able.
Yeah.
When the stressors come, they don't become long-term stressors. They become acute, resolved quickly.
Right.
And that raises your dopamine, your ability to learn.
Yeah.
So it almost makes sense in
you're rewarded.
Exactly. So the strong survive.
You level up. Yeah.
Yeah. You proliferate, you perpetuate your genes because of your problem-solving ability and your competence and your ability to respond to stress. So stress this is also clinically talked about, it can produce a freeze response or it can produce an engage response.
Right.
And that really depends on how confident you are in your own ability.
Yeah.
And so
how you mentally approach that stressor.
So the people listening to this, I'd say, if you're chronically stressed, in addition to the meditation practices and the therapy, sound therapy, and speaking good words over yourself, frame the way you accomplish small tasks.
Yeah.
Reward yourself, not necessarily with food or something that could be unhealthy, but give yourself a second to reflect on the wins you have. Because what's today, like I got up on time for work, and I am going to sleep on time tonight. Tomorrow can be, I crushed that deal. I crushed that presentation. I did this really well. And over time, you equip yourself to fight chronic stressors. And not just from mitigating your physiological response, but by framing the way you do everything,
Well, and it's as important as the way that you start your day. So if you start your day with a win, if you start your day with a mindful intention, framing, you're going to frame everything that happens in your day from a positive mindset. Yeah. And then start your day with a little bit of stress that you turn into a win.
Cold therapy is actually a really good one.
I was thinking just making your bed.
Oh, that's true. That's really good.
It's like
is that Jocko Willink who talks about that a lot?
So
Make your bed.
I forget. I think it was an invocation or something. I want to say it was a
Jordan
Navy
Peterson
admiral or something.
Yeah.
Was giving a speech at a graduation, and it was like, number one thing you can do to be successful in life: start your day by making your bed, because you've started your day with
a challenge.
one win, with a challenge, but one win. And that leads you to do more wins. You've already accomplished something. If nothing else, if everything else goes wrong the rest of the day,
you started on a win.
You had a win. You started with a win.
That is really
so.
profound.
Let that win turn into your second, and your third, and your fourth.
Oh my gosh, that's phenomenal. And then that trains you to make those acute or stress acute and not chronic.
Yeah, it helps you to continue to keep your mindset like reframed, right, in that positive mindset, because no one gets out of bed and wants to make their bed unless they've been trained over time that they're getting that dopamine rush.
Man, I fought this morning,
right?
Literally this morning.
But when you get home at the end of the day
and it's made,
and you open up your bedroom door and your bed is
hey,
made,
that's 2 wins. You win again,
right?
Honestly.
Yeah. So there you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Life hack: make your bed.
Life hack. Also, man, I don't want to go too off into it, but there's a term: eat your frog.
Yeah.
You got to sweep the floor. Just sweep the floor now. Yeah. And it's the tiny things. Just greet it with like, I can and I will.
There's no better time than now.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Aaron, number 9, Frontiers in Physiology.
Yeah. So this last study is The Dose Makes the Cure. It's from the University of Massachusetts and Johns Hopkins. And they were doing a comprehensive review over 500 different studies on stressors, exercise, fasting, temperature, and mild psychological pain. Mild psychological strain.
So mental exercises, things like that.
And what they found is that low-level, time-limited stress activities, low-level, time-limited stress activates protective pathways, enhancing our resilience and longevity. And that, again, here it is. Here's the other shoe to drop. Chronic stress suppresses that. So again, it's one of those
we're learning together, guys. This is all
how
us
you
together.
frame your mind, right? If you make your stressors short-term stressors and not chronic stressors, if you have the wins, you're activating protective pathways that are going to support your body, that are going to lead to longevity, that are going to not only make you feel better, because hormonally you can't help but feel better because your
absolutely.
cortisol's going down, your oxytocin's going
Dopamine's going up too.
dopamine's going up. Like you're getting all the reward centers by having those wins.
But you're creating
at the same
protective
time,
pathways.
You're reducing your inflammation. You're reducing your risk of disease. You're improving your immune system's your immune system's ability to fight actual things that it should be fighting instead of fighting your own body. Like there are all these other things that keep happening. And really, I think it starts with your mindset.
I really think it does. Are you the enemy or is your stress the enemy? I don't know if your immune system differentiates because, I mean, it can, but when you are the source of your chronic stress because you're not repairing something, and not to put anyone in a hard seat like that. I know some things are almost unavoidable, but over time can improve. When you are the enemy to your immune system, you're the thing that starts getting attacked. And it'd be anecdotal, except we've seen it for 100 years.
That's really fascinating, though.
But you make your stress in front of you the thing to overcome, and you equip yourself to be the combatant that's capable. And your immune system is then it reprioritizes what it needs to fight off, the thing that actually hurts you, not you. And I mean, it's so funny. Like, I also want to mention these protective pathways, which are NRF2, HSP70, and BDNF. Those fight against IL-6 and IL-2. So IL-10 is the FOXP3.
Right.
It basically upregulates T cells, crosses the blood-brain barrier.
Helps reduce
the other IL
neuroinflammation.
do as well. These protect against that. So you have a presence of that, and it's your brain saying, yes, a stressor is here. I'm not bowing down to the stressor. Yeah. Which is wild. And that comes from giving yourself things, making your bed, things you can win. Yeah. Your mindset improves and your body listens.
So let's say somebody's listening to this and they're thinking, you've talked about your mindset over and over and over again. Yeah. I can't help but fix my mindset. What else can I do?
I think your mindset will be static as long as you are perpetuating it. Yeah. So a mindset, neuroplasticity and brain stuff aside, a mindset's hard to change unless the circumstances that kind of led to that change, I think. So humans think this is going to be forever. This is not going to change. So I would say with your actual physiology, with your hands and your feet, change something. Go on a walk.
That's perfect. That's exactly where I wanted you to take
Okay,
this,
cool.
Right? Which
A+.
is get out, right? Like, what can you do if your mindset is the problem? If your mind is the problem, your thoughts are the problem. Yeah. We're also given a body, right? We're not just a mind. We're also given the ability to control our body. Yeah. Get outside, get some sunlight. Andrew Huberman talks about the importance of getting sunlight early in the morning.
Absolutely.
Go outside, take a walk, go on a run, ride a bike, do some physical exercise. because when you do physical exercise, you can't help but produce some of these same hormones that help, again, break you from fight or flight, get you into that rest and digest state.
Absolutely. And it helps with energy regulation. So wake up in the morning, you see sunlight, and you exercise. By evening, you're going to be tired at a more optimal time.
Yeah.
Lower sugar cravings. Yep. You sleep better. Your sleep's going to be deeper. That has a crazy amount of effect. I think you did a podcast episode with Dr. Harris on sleep.
Sleep is one of the most important things. And one of the easiest things you can do with sleep is consistency. So if you are consistent with your sleep, meaning you go to bed at the same time and wake up at the same time, if you do that consistently, your sleep will improve significantly.
I've been testing this week. I was going to sleep at like 12 to 1 a.m. For years. Yeah. And I decided, I talked to my brother and he said the best way to improve your sleep is to wake up earlier. Yeah. Because your body's, the first 2 days are going to be a drag.
Which means you'll go to sleep earlier.
And I was asleep at like 10:30 last night. Yeah. And the difference in how good I feel today is wild. Yeah. It's crazy. And I woke up at 8:30 feeling, I know it's a lot of sleep. I had not gotten great sleep, as I mentioned, for the past 3 nights. But last night was amazing. And it's incredible the outlook you have on life when your sleep's better. And
it changes so many different things.
I was thinking about the word exercise, and something exercise means is to exercise something out.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So your body's expressing.
You're making a change.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So if your mentality can't change, do something with your body, sweep the floor, clean your house, make your bed. And your body cannot help but produce accompanying hormones and neurochemical responses that actually help you habituate that positive practice. Yeah. And then
your body helps set you up for success.
Yeah. And you realize your mentality is malleable.
Yeah.
It can change.
Yeah.
I honestly do think, I've worked with you guys for a couple of years, but one of the biggest takeaways I've just learned is mindsets manifest, and you can change the way you think about things.
Yeah. You have control over it.
You do have control.
You have mind, will, and emotion.
The Lord put you in the pilot seat, you know, of your free will. And so, that's a whole other tangent I can go on for 30 minutes, but it's amazing that as we were talking about this, these studies kept showing up where it's like short-term stressors, great if you can overcome them. Long-term stressors, do the exact opposite.
Right.
And I love seeing science catch up with this.
Yeah.
You know?
And I love that we're seeing science prove that your mindset relates to your ability to fight stress and respond to stress appropriately to get those wins. And it relates to your body's immune system and to not attack itself, right? So it's amazing how our body is all combined, is all one thing that all works together. Yeah. And I think for so long, we like to break things down and separate them and put them in their own places and treat them as individual things, right? Yeah. And what we're seeing is science going, well, maybe we did that backwards. Maybe we should zoom out
absolutely.
and look at the body as one system and it having these interrelated parts that all have to function together, right? There are a bunch of puzzle pieces that have to fit. And when you have one piece that doesn't fit, the whole puzzle isn't finished, right? It's not put together.
That's a good analogy.
And so let's make all the puzzle pieces fit. Let's put it all together. Your mindset is super important. All these down-regulating effects, right? Like everything flows. Or upregulating.
Yeah,
but all these downstream effects, I guess I should have said, right? That come about whenever your mindset is wrong about the way that you handle stress.
That is wild. Man, this is illuminated a lot. It makes you really frame. I know we're talking to you guys, but it makes me frame how I'm like going to handle every stress I see now, like the competence of it. But yeah, I think that the way we're designed is an incredible thing. Yep. And truly, it's time to look at things holistically.
Yeah. And so I guess kind of where I want to leave this is we've had a great conversation here today. We mentioned some of the other conversations because, again, this podcast for me is really tying everything that we've already talked about together and bridging that gap and doing so in just a conversational way.
Absolutely.
So I want us to link, especially the podcast with Dr. Harris, where he talks about our T regulatory cells, our body's immune system, also our sleep and the importance of our sleep and how sleep detoxifies the body, right?
Especially the brain.
Because again, we're fighting inflammation. Something that we're going to talk about very soon with Dr. Harris is about dementia and Alzheimer's, which, spoiler alert, has to do with inflammation, has to do with stress, right? And so it's one of those, like, all of these things keep being interrelated.
Yeah.
And
They have to be.
It's
They
not
are.
because we're intentionally creating interrelated pieces
No.
of content. It's because this is just how it all works,
Yeah,
is that these are
absolutely.
all interrelated pieces. And so on this podcast, on the Science of Sound, what we're trying to do, like our goal for this podcast is find science, find studies, and then talk about how it relates to the whole person,
Yeah, absolutely.
right? How your mindset impacts the whole person,
Yeah.
how your immune system impacts the whole person, how
your body
your stress
impacts your
impacts
mind.
the whole
Yeah.
person, right? So we're one big interrelated piece, and we're taking these bits and pieces of different scientific studies and making it interrelated.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really integrating it.
Yeah, it's a beautiful work, and we appreciate you for listening and being a part of this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'd
And
love to say, leave comments if there are things that you want to hear about or talk about or are curious about. If you do your deep dives on studies and there's something you may just want expanded in this realm,
yeah,
I think we'd love to talk
and that's
about
yeah.
it.
Again, like turning it over to you guys. Let us know in the comments, what do you want to hear about? What can we dive deeper into? Is there something that you want to hear Christian and I talk about more? Are there more studies in a specific area you want us to go into and have a conversation about? Is there something that you have for Dr. Harris? Do you have a question? Maybe he's touched on something and it really hit home with you, but you want him to go way deeper into the nitty-gritty of the science on how it all interrelates. Let us know that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, as always, please like and subscribe. There's nothing else you can do besides liking, subscribing, and commenting to help us more.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
thank you so much.
You've been listening to The Science of Sound with Aaron Fournier. If you found today's conversation insightful, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. For more resources on frequency-based wellness, follow along at Soak Podcast. Until next time, keep listening, keep learning, and stay in tune with The Science of Sound.